Well, we are back here at the Hall of History, and today we're going to take a look at the devastation of the Great Depression. The picture on here, and I've used this picture before, also is probably the one more poignant pictures of the Depression, uh, showing a mother and her children. And you could just see the forlorn hopelessness of her situation. Uh, Clothes are in tatters, the kids are in tatters. Look, it's probably living in a tent in the background there. And this was the norm during this time. Well, we looked at a little bit in the cities, but what about well, I should say, what about the urban areas? And we talked a bit about this in our previous discussions on this. But people were not working, couldn't pay their bills, couldn't pay their mortgages, so they were evicted from their homes. And hundreds of thousands, these shanty towns, rose up on the outskirts of towns. The nickname for these was Hoovervilles, and we'll look at that a little bit later. Why? This is not these little shanty towns were not too unlike if you followed the news around Grand Rapids lately, where some of the homeless people have set up uh, little towns, if you will. Uh, there's an island in the middle of the Grand River. I believe it's just south of Wealthy Street they were living on. Then also out near the Walker area on some property that is owned by the railroad. And these shanty towns were not unlike what these people nowadays are living on. And you can read the definition here. You just grabbed whatever you could grab and make yourself a living space out of it. Here's some pictures of these shanty towns, the homes where these people are living. It's just wood, maybe some corrugated metal, whatever was at their disposal to use. You can see some looks like some bricks here and some wood just piled together. Interesting. At least this gentleman still has a sense of humor. If you look at the road sign on the right, it says Sleepy Hollow. Here's one outside one of the major cities, and these towns were just sprouting up on empty lots around the cities. People were hoping to get work. They were lining up for food rations, and just not a great time in America if you were a laborer at this time. Here's another picture of one. Looks like a woman might be doing her washing there. Uh, Again, pretty ramshackle. Imagine yourself living for a few years in one of these. Here's another picture of a smaller one. You can see the small child there. These these shanty towns, these pictures remind me of I was watching the show Yukon, talking about the Yukon Gold Rush, and I believe it was like 1897 up near Dawson, up in the Yukon territories in Canada, and the miners were living in essentially what were tent shanty towns like this, just slapped some wood together and lived in those while they were mining. Here's another picture. You know, there's just not much there. You can see the pots and pans hanging in the window there. Here's another picture again from a larger city, and you can see the crates being used to build a house, and I'm sure it was also used to keep the place warm and for firewood to cook whatever food there was. Another picture here, and you can see the old industrial sites here, in the background. You can see those, and see these gentlemen. They're out of work. Looks like I was going to say this must have been around Christmas time because this looks like a somewhat of an effort for a Christmas tree there. Well, how did the Great Depression affect the urban areas? Well, definitely the hunger. You know, People were digging garbage cans to find anything to eat or to find anything to be closed with. Apple cores, kind of interesting, were actually sold on street corners. People did not have anything to eat. Reminds me going back to that the show about the Yukon. An orange was worth $100, and this was back in 18 or 1897. And so put yourself in their shoes, where you had nowhere, no work, no money, no food, no clothing, no shelter. Well, you can read this for yourself. Picture one of the soup kitchens in a place where food is offered free to the needy. It'd be a place like in South Division in our town, where people that are homeless can go in and get a hot meal. And the bread lines people receive to get food provided by typically religious organizations, or even the public agencies, if the city or the state had the money to put one together. In the rural areas, or the farming areas, 400,000 farms are lost to foreclosure. Again, many of these farmers went out on a limb during World War I, bought more property, modern machinery. Then when the bottom fell out of the price market for wheat and other crops, they couldn't make their mortgages, couldn't make their loan payments, and their farms were foreclosed. The other double whammy of the rural areas, especially during the Great Plains during the first half of the 30s, was the Dust Bowl. This Dust Bowl, there was no crop rotation at this time. People did, or I should say farmers, did not know much about taking care of land other than to plant a crop, harvest it, plow it under, and plant it again. So what ended up happening, you ended up taking much of the topsoil was lost. If you know anything about the Great Plains, the wind blows there quite a bit. Go back to your science classes. We are in that. We are in the prevailing westerlies, and once this drought hit in the first half of the 30s, the ground became dry. The winds came up, and essentially just tore off all the topsoil, and you couldn't plant crops or anything anymore. And people, as you can see, this, literally you had sand dunes, these dunes of dirt covering up homes, and the farms went under. There was nothing left. Here's a picture of a dust storm during this time. You can see it's moving in, and everything will be covered with dust, and just what ended up happening is the soil just lost all its nutrients, and there was just nothing left to farm at the time. It's a little bit more of a modern picture of a dust storm, and these gentlemen are actually playing cricket, and they are in India, and a dust storm came up there. This is not winter. This is not near the beach. This is in the middle of the midsection of the country, and you can see you almost had beach-like conditions with the ripples in the dirt. It's because of the ongoing wind and the lack of rain. You can see, looks pretty hopeless there. The trees have no leaves or anything on them. It was just a terrible time for the farmers. Here's another one showing a crop in the field. Again, no soil, no water, everything just a total loss. Well, what ended up happening with this is many of these farmers, again, you can see from the picture here, you're looking where the Dust Bowl. You're looking at Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, and you can see where many of these people moved to the West Coast. The northern people living up in Nebraska and the coast and so forth went up to Washington, and the other ones went out to California. You find during this time many people were going out west. We're going to look at hopefully a little bit later about Route 66. And that was the major thoroughfare going from Chicago all the way to Bakersfield, essentially Los Angeles, California. Also, this time Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath was written, kind of outlining, telling a story about the Okies from Oklahoma leaving the area at the time of the Dust Bowl. This is from 1934, the Drought Severity Index, and you can see much of the country was in a drought, and this drought really just forced, a lot of these farmers lost their money on this. Irrigation was not big at this time. In fact, underneath, especially Nebraska and the Plain States, there's what's called the Ogallala Aquifer, but this was not too well known at the time, and was not the idea of where you look, excuse me, where we have wells nowadays to irrigate the crops. People pretty much relied on the precipitation. All right, that ends our look at this, and we'll continue later.